Farm Week is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Hi, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. As you can tell, we're starting off today's Farm Week differently.
It's pledge time in Mississippi Public Broadcasting. We know times are tough, but MPB has been there for you in the good times and the bad times.
Farm Week will celebrate its 34th anniversary on MPB this fall. That's commitment no matter how you define it.
So please dial the toll-free number on your screen now and know that your pledge of support will support Farm Week and MPB. Today on Farm Week, we'll have the first crop production report of the fall as growers and the market look at the numbers.
Interested in animals? Each summer, Mississippi State University hosts a veterinary camp for those interested in this career.
In southern gardening, the Zahara zinnia. This flower series has some new colors, and it's still a great flower for the heat of the South.
In the markets, a much-anticipated crop report answers questions about corn and beans as exports continue to help hog prices.
In the feature segment, the 2011 Delta Rice Luncheon in Cleveland, Mississippi takes place September 16th. It pays tributes to the state's rice industry and introduces the participants to the variety of ways rice can be served. We'll take you back to last year's luncheon to get you in the mood for this year's.
We as rice farmers appreciate the hard work that the Delta Promotions do for this rice luncheon and promote people eating rice. It is good for the economy of not only the Delta of Mississippi.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture released its August crop production report Thursday morning.
Leighton, the August report's always greeted with a lot of attention because it is the first crop production report of the fall that actually is based on field conditions. I'm going to give the numbers, with Leighton providing most of the analysis later on in the Farm Week markets. As we look at soybeans across the nation, 3.06 billion bushel crop predicted. That is off from last year by 8%. There's less harvested acres. Yield 41.4 bushels per acre. Here in Mississippi, our harvested acres are also off, 71.2 million bushel crop predicted, but the yield is expected to be 40 bushels per acre, which is up from last year. U.S. corn, 12.9 billion bushel crop. If that's realized, it would be the third largest crop on record. In terms of Mississippi corn, we saw more acres planted this year, so that gave us a 95.12 million bushel crop. In terms of yield, though, the weather did not cooperate, 116 bushels per acre, and that's off 20 from last year. U.S. cotton, 16.6 million bale crop predicted. That's off 9% from last year. Here in Mississippi, we saw our harvested acres increase to 590,000, so that gives us a 1.15 million bale crop with a yield of 936 pounds per acre. U.S. rice off this year due to less acres planted, 188.1 million hundredweight crop. That will give us 7,114 pounds per acre, which is up from last year. Here in Mississippi, our yield is up as well, but because we have less planted acres, we see our crop is only 13.25 million hundredweight. U.S. peanuts, 3.61 billion pounds predicted. That's off 13% from last year, and that's because there was less acres planted. In terms of yield, 3,234 pounds per acre. That's off 77 from last year. Here in Mississippi, our harvested acres are off 1,000 down to 17,000. So that gives us a total crop of 57.8 million hundredweight, and that, pounds, and that is 3,400 pounds per acre yield, which is off 100 pounds from last year due to weather as well. Leighton, an initial impression on the report?
Well, the pre-report estimates were on the right track, Artis, but there were some surprises, and stay with us for the markets later and you'll find out what they were. Well, as always, teenagers have spent this summer in a variety of ways before having to head back to school. For a select few, it was a chance to have a first-hand look at life as a veterinary student. They were taking part in a new camp at Mississippi State University. Veterinary Camp brought students with an interest in animals to Mississippi State University for 3 days.
As long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a vet, and this is really going to help me figure out if this is what I want to do or not. So I think this is going to be a good experience.
The students took part in interactive labs where they learned about veterinary medicine from faculty members like Professor Sharon Grace. They also had plenty of hands-on experience with live animals during the camp.
I like today learning how to make sure dogs are okay and what to do during heat strokes, because it's really hot outside during the summer. So if one of my dogs did get a heat stroke, I'd know what to do and how to take care of them when that does occur.
Current students in the College of Veterinary Medicine volunteered their time to serve as camp counselors. The idea for the first-of-its-kind camp originated with a group of first-year CVM students.
We could have run twice as many camps this year with the interest that we had, which starting the camp, we weren't completely sure how it was going to work. Trying to plan a camp in the middle of veterinary school is pretty exciting too, but we had great turnout. We have amazing kids.
One of this year's campers has an older sister who is already a student in the College of Veterinary Medicine, and the camper wants to become a veterinarian as well.
Because my sister has always been interested in being a veterinarian, and we would always be together, and she'd just tell me all these things about animals and all the stuff she was learning.
There is already a waiting list for the 2012 veterinary camp. From Mississippi State University, I'm Leighton Spann reporting.
Are you looking for a flowering annual that likes the summer heat? Well, in this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman will show us how the Zahara zinnia series can provide season-long color.
Today I'm at MSU's South Mississippi Branch Station in Poplarville, checking out the Zahara zinnia in the trial gardens. Zahara zinnia are tolerant of hot and droughty conditions, and that's good for our Mississippi gardens. Zahara zinnia are great choices for providing annual color in the landscape. The selections in the Zahara series are well branched to support the abundant flowering. There's a wide range of new colors including yellow, white, and scarlet. A favorite of mine is Starlight Rose. This is a bicolor selection of white petals with a splash of deep rose shining from the center. However, the deep rose coloration is variable in hot weather. But perhaps the most exciting are the double flower selections. Double Cherry has deep magenta blooms, while Double Fire is a hot scarlet orange. Both double Zaharas have centers that lighten as the flowers mature. Zahara zinnia should be planted in the full sun, knowing the color will not bleach out. In many areas of Mississippi, planting in raised beds will result in superior plant growth and flowering all summer long. These are low-maintenance flowering bedding plants. Transplanted in the landscape, Zahara zinnia will quickly provide a blanket of color. And one of the best features of these plants is deadheading is seldom necessary. Planting Zahara zinnia is one way to help make the summer landscape more beautiful with its season-long color. I'm Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Gary says Zahara zinnia are great bedding plants because they can hold their blooms in the heat. Well, in the feature segment today, the Delta Rice Luncheon is coming up next month in Cleveland, Mississippi. We'll whet your appetite for it by looking back at last year's. Time now for the Markets with Leighton. You say concern about the nation's debt is actually hurting cotton prices.
That's right, and we'll explain that in just a moment. Also ahead this week, traders say they expect less corn production in this new crop report. We'll find out if they were right or wrong. Exports are still strong for pork, and analysts are concerned that lots of cattle have been pushed ahead. Concerns over the debt and the downgrade in the U.S. credit rating is weighing on cotton futures. Analysts say the lack of confidence in the United States is especially bearish for commodities such as cotton, which is not strictly a necessity such as food is. The Federal Reserve pledge on Tuesday to keep interest rates low is seen as a plus as far as maybe helping cotton consumption. Well, that big August crop report was released early Thursday morning, as you heard earlier. After looking over the numbers, Extension Ag economist John Michael Riley discussed what it had to say about corn and soybeans. John Michael, before Thursday's report, you had the major private brokerage firms, I guess most all of them, Lynn Group, Informa, Allendale saying a cut in corn production was coming. Were they disappointed, or what did the report say?
They were on track. They just didn't expect the cut to be as deep as the new report has said. Corn yield at 155 bushels per acre. Trade was expecting something just over 155. That put the production number there just under 13 billion bushels. Trade was looking for that to be just over 13 billion. So in the end, you know, a bit more harsh than trade is expected. Of course, the discussion for the past number of weeks has been, what is the yield going to be, given the delays in planting that we saw early in the season, and then the extreme heat that's been plaguing most of the Corn Belt for the last number of weeks.
Mm-hmm. As far as Mississippi and corn, what did the report say?
Harvested acres at 820, which is quite a jump from last year. It puts us back toward that 2007-2008 corn numbers, but yield taking quite a hit this year. 116 bushels per acre is the projection right now versus last year's yield number of 136. So production is a little bit higher, but the lower delta is especially suffering in terms of the dry weather that we experienced.
All right, the private analysts also, I believe, were expecting a cut in soybean production as well in these new numbers. How did that pan out with USDA?
Even more drastic than corn. They were looking for a yield number of 42.8 bushels. Came in at 41.4, which was below the lowest expectation of 42. So even more drastic for soybeans. The interesting thing when you start thinking, looking at that is for the 6 states that produce the 51% of the harvested acres, all but one, Iowa, is looking to take a cut from last year's yield number, which is kind of opposite of corn, whereas really all the fringe states are where yield is taking a hit. The major producing corn states are looking for a gain.
So what do all these numbers mean for the price picture as we move a little closer to September here? Well,
it's definitely a bullish report, just given the fact that these numbers are below expectations. A lot of that's been priced in, so I'd be surprised if, you know, it definitely has potential to go higher because of the fact that we probably are looking at a lower production for both of these crops. There's still a lot to be determined before the end of the season.
There is a report out of Arkansas that weather-stressed rice could result in lower yields for this crop. The high nighttime temperatures of late are the problem. Plant physiologists say the warm nights can hinder starch development, which in turn can reduce rice yields and kernel quality. The University of Arkansas says it happened last year and that it may be happening this year on many farms. To help transition us into the livestock markets, here's our trivia question for the week. What year did the sheep industry peak in the United States? In other words, when did sheep numbers begin a steady decline? Is it 1921, 1929, 1942, or 1958? I'll answer the question here in a few more minutes.
We're going to pause now for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the second part of the markets. Leighton Spann says the export market is helping hog prices while cattle supplies are tightening. In the feature segment today, we'll have rice for lunch. The annual Delta Rice Luncheon takes place next month. We'll whet your appetite for the 2011 edition.
Hi, I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. We're going to take a break from today's Farm Week to ask for your support. It's time for the August Pledge Drive on Mississippi Public Broadcasting.
Normally, MPB preempts Farm Week's Saturday broadcast during its pledge drives. We asked to stay on air so Farm Week viewers could express their support for Farm Week and Mississippi Public Broadcasting. Farm
Week will celebrate its 34th anniversary on MPB this October. That's extraordinary commitment. That means in spite of good budgets and bad budgets, the Mississippi State University Extension Service and MPB stuck with Farm Week.
We ask you now to pick up the phone and call the toll-free number on your screen to support MPB. You can also go online at www.mpbonline.org. Now, back to Farm Week.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. A Mississippi Market Maker Workshop is scheduled for Tuesday, August 23rd. Takes place from 10 a.m. to noon at the MSU Coastal Research and Extension Center on Pops Ferry Road in Biloxi. Market Maker allows you to market your products via the web to a national audience. A Dairy Forage Farm Tour takes place Wednesday, August 31st. The location is the Smith Dairy Farm and Country Girl Creamery. That's at 203 Sammy Joe Road, Lumberton. The farm's located about 11 miles east of Poplarville on Highway 26. The hours are from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Participants will learn about the successful growth and utilization of pasture and stored forages on a forage-based dairy farm. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this Farm Week snapshot.
In the pork sector, there is some talk that the so-called hog cycle is revving up again. Pork has been a huge export item for the United States. Analyst Mark Gold was asked on Market to Market whether the strengthening dollar will cool some of that or whether demand will overpower it.
The Chinese want the pork. We've seen, 6 out of 7 days new record highs in the pork market. What I'm seeing is this hog cycle coming back into swing. When I went to ag school at the University of Illinois in the 70s, we talked about the hog cycle. Nobody's talked about the hog cycle since we had 22-cent hogs in 1997. But the fact of the matter is $100 hogs, we're starting to see some of these confinement operations get up and running again. More people are going to come back into it. You've got high price, low production. What's the farmer going to do? They're going to fix that by going into production. And I believe at these kind of prices, you've got to protect that risk.
As far as the beef sector, supplies of market-ready cattle continue to tighten, according to traders. In the Southwest, especially Texas, there have been a lot of cow sales due to the drought conditions there. Analyst Mark Gold is worried about the fact that so many cattle are being pushed ahead now.
Futures are at strong prices in here. It's amazing considering what the economy's done with the stock market, because we've seen them track each other so closely over the last several years. Stock market fell out of bed, but the cattle remain strong. We know the numbers are as low as we've been in 50 some odd years in this cattle industry. We've pushed so many animals ahead in here. I don't know where we're going to draw the cattle from in the next 3 or 4 months. If you look at some of the pricing out there right now, it's going to show us that we're going to be tight on this cattle market at least through December. And we're going to see, I believe, you've got this feeder cattle market relatively flat across the board within a $3 range. I can't believe we won't see some higher feeder cattle prices down the road.
Well, it may be hard to believe all our time for the markets is about gone, but let's answer our trivia quiz before we move to our feature story this week. Well, C, 1942 is the correct choice. The USDA says that sheep numbers have shown a steady decline in this country since peaking in that year.
In the feature segment today, the Delta Rice Luncheon will take place in Cleveland, Mississippi in September. Last year, the luncheon celebrated its 20th anniversary. Delta Rice Promotions Incorporated, a private nonprofit, hosts the luncheon at Delta State University. It's held the third Friday in September, and we're going to whet your appetite for this year's luncheon by revisiting last year's. Farm Week's Amy Taylor reports.
With about 200,000 acres of rice being planted in Mississippi each year, it's easy to see why the crop is so highly valued, especially in the Delta. Rice is grown in much of the state's northeast area and ranks among Mississippi's top agricultural exports. To educate the public and celebrate the influence of Mississippi rice, the annual National Rice Month Luncheon is held at Delta State University in Cleveland. Dr. Martha Ray Sarter, former 4-H Youth Development Specialist for Mississippi State University Extension, was among the first to bring the luncheon to life.
20 years ago, when we were working with the USA Rice Council, they had proclaimed the first ever National Rice Month. And I was the Extension Home Economist, and I worked with a county ag agent named Joe Love. And we just thought, since Bolivar County grew 1/3 of the state's rice, that we needed to do something to celebrate the first ever proclaimed National Rice Month. And the idea became to have a rice luncheon. And it grew out of something Farm Bureau had done in the past. And so we decided maybe it was time to bring it up a notch.
The luncheon was a success, meeting the goal of drawing 1,000 people. Tickets sold for $2 each, and they're the same price today. The event is hosted by Delta Rice Promotions Incorporated, which was also formed 20 years ago to promote Delta rice. The group is made up of MSU Extension personnel, Farm Bureau members, and other community leaders. Dr. Sarter says the group fortunately had no trouble promoting the luncheon.
It was very easy. The Delta's a very social place. We do things around food. We do it around friends. And so it was a natural for this community and for the whole community of the Delta. We advertised it throughout the rice counties. We got the assistance for the food for all 13 counties. and it was advertised statewide through newspapers. We didn't have the internet like we do today. It was in its infancy, but we just got the word out just through good media efforts.
The annual National Rice Month Luncheon continues to grow, reaching a record this year of over 2,000 people. Rice farmer Ronnie Aguzzi says he's glad the community recognizes rice production in Mississippi.
We as rice farmers appreciate the hard work that the Delta Promotions do for this rice luncheon and promote people eating rice. It is good for the economy of not only the Delta of Mississippi.
The state's annual rice crop contributes about $144 million to Mississippi's economy. The rice-growing families and local Delta restaurants brought over 300 rice dishes to the luncheon, featuring various entrees, side items, and even desserts. Laura Jacalia, MSU Extension Bolivar County Director, says an event on this scale requires a great deal of planning.
I mean, in all honesty, we actually started back, say, last April or May to plan this event. We formed subcommittees to put on Delta Rice Promotions Luncheon, and so everybody just works together in their little subcommittee. This year we decided to make it more like a birthday party, and as a matter of fact, we have a cake that will serve 350 people, and it is a replica of a rice field. The lady did an awesome job, and so I hate to cut it.
In addition to the massive birthday cake, the event showcased a cooking demonstration with Chef Robert St. John, who has appeared on the Food Network, Travel Channel, and Turner South Network. Jacalia explains why it was a perfect highlight.
St. John is from the South, and so it's you know, what better way to help us promote rice than to invite a Southern chef here that knows all about the Delta.
The demonstration featured Cajun dishes cooked with rice. In addition to television appearances, Chef St. John has authored several cookbooks, written food columns, and runs Mississippi restaurants, Purple Parrot Cafe, Crescent City Grill, and Mahogany Bar. He ended with an excerpt from one of his books where he jokes about why it could be a good thing that certain people don't visit the South because of their false conceptions.
Out of everything I've written, this piece has probably gotten the most notoriety of anything I've ever done. This is based on an epiphany I had, and it's called My South. I'm always amused by Hollywood's interpretation of the South. We are still on occasion depicted as a collective group of sweaty, stupid, backwards-minded, and racist rednecks. The South of movies and TV, the Hollywood South, is not my South. My South is full of honest, hard-working people. My South is colorblind. My South is the birthplace of blues and jazz and rock and roll. It has banjo pickers and fiddle players, but it also has B.B. King, Muddy Waters, the Allman Brothers, Emmylou Harris, and Elvis. My South is hot. In my South, football is king, and the Southeastern Conference is the kingdom. In my South, family matters deeply. In my South, the tea is iced and almost as sweet as the women. In my South, the only person that has to sit on the back of the bus is the last person that got on the bus. In my South, people still say yes ma'am, no ma'am, please, and thank you. In my South, we all wear shoes most of the time. My South is the best kept secret in the country. Keep the secret. It keeps the jerks out. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
St. John stayed to sign books and mingle with visitors. Laura Jacalia says nutritional information on rice was also available, as well as medical services.
We have Bolivar Medical, we have Delta State with their nursing staff and also their food nutrition staff. They're here today taking blood pressure and checking cholesterol. We also, of course, have the ag lending agencies here with us today, Farm Bureau, Land Bank, USA Rice Federation, and U.S. Rice Producers.
Jacalia says she's proud that Delta Rice Promotions Incorporated put on the most unique rice luncheon yet. Dr. Martha Ray Sauter says she's happy to see the tradition live on.
The rice community that put this together has really done a great job in continuing this event, and I'm just honored that they invited me back this year.
The grand additions to this year's annual National Rice Month Luncheon prove the tradition of honoring Mississippi rice will live on for years to come. From Delta State University, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
You can watch this story again on our Farmweek website. That's farmweek.msucares.com. If you'd like for information on the Delta Rice Luncheon, you can contact the Bolivar County office of the Mississippi State University Extension Service. We'll have their contact information on the Farmweek website. The Delta Rice Luncheon takes place the third Friday of September. This year's will be September 16th at the Coliseum at Delta State University in Cleveland. Hours will be 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Tickets are $3 and they can be bought at the door. More than 300 rice dishes will be served. Now this year there will be a cook-off between 3 Delta chefs, David Cruz, Walt Norwood, and David Wright, and that will start at 10 a.m., kind of their version, I guess, of the Iron Chef's show.
Right.
But congratulations to the Delta Rice Luncheon. We are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, the outgoing Mississippi Outstanding Loggers of the Year from Lamar County.
This crew runs a lean operation, one that's long on safety and short on accidents. It's helped them survive the downturn in the lumber market.
In southern gardening, some people think shade gardens are dull by nature, and we'll show you that some plants can put color under your trees. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next week.
Before we go today, we want to ask one more time for your support of Farm Week and Mississippi Public Broadcasting.
Farm Week has been on MPB since October of 1977. That's a show of commitment from both the Mississippi State University Extension Service and MPB.
We ask you now to go to your phone and call in your pledge of support. Farm Week comes to you at no charge, but you know that it costs money to keep Farm Week and MPB on the air.
Call the toll-free number on your screen, and we thank you for your support.